Hey there, friend. Welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast. It is so great to have you back with me today, listening in. And we are actually going to dive into a piece of content that I just recently created for an organization I'm working with. And I want to share it with you because I think it will relate to you personally as well. And so we're going to be talking today about SMART goals, but I want to talk about SMART goals through the lens of the real life process and the way I see goals. And so stick around because it is going to be a fun episode as we explore an older way of talking about goals and update it to a new real life process way of looking at planning and goals. So let's dive into our conversation today. But before we do, I want to encourage you to take some action first. The action I want you to take is to go to our website at therealifeprocess.com, and I want you to click on the link to join our free community. This is where we have more and more of these types of conversations around personal growth and development, spiritual growth and development, and business growth and development. And I can probably believe that you fit into one of those three categories, if not all three of those categories. And it's absolutely free to be a part of that community, the Real Life Process community. So that's the first action I want you to take, is just to go do that. The second action is this. In the month of April, I would like to answer some of your questions. And I have an offer for you of something free that I will send you in the mail, a little free goodie packet from the Real Life Process, some swag and some different things that we'll send your way if you email me with a question and we use it on the show in the month of April. So you just send that email to Teresa, Teresa, at therealifeprocess.com. Remember? Real life, 1L. So Teresa at therealifeprocess.com, and just put in the subject line question from the podcast or whatever you would like to put to get my attention. I'll use it in the month of April to answer some listener questions, and I will send you a little swag gift in the mail. We'll get your address and all of that, and we will send that out to you. But I want to spend the month of April just answering some of your questions that you have here on the podcast. Shoot me an email and let me answer your question, whatever it might be. I just told you all the things that I like to talk about. Now, let's dive into the content that we have for today's episode. About 3 or 4 months ago, probably the beginning of the year, I actually started working with an organization here in town. And it's a business organization, and I'm doing some facilitating, some workshop leading, and some different things for them. And one of the things that I knew within almost every organization is they're familiar with the idea of SMART goals. And then we were actually training a new group of Real Life Process certified coaches. We're in a cohort right now training them. And I started thinking about something we call areas of focus. And I started thinking about SMART goals and areas of focus. And I really thought, this is our version. Areas of focus are our version of SMART goals. And so I want to walk you through today the old version of SMART goals and what's the new real life process version of looking out and setting some long range planning around your life or the work that you do, either one. But before I go there, I want to give you just a little bit of history of what is a SMART goal? Where did it come from? I actually had to go look it up. It's just been a term that we've used forever, but it actually dates back to about 1981 when a guy named George T. Doran introduced the concept in an article that he wrote titled, "There's a SMART, S-M-A-R-T, way to write management goals and objectives. And the article was published in November of 1981 in a journal called Management Review. And it just took on a life of its own, this idea of this acronym of SMART goals. And I think the reason it caught on, number one, it's an acronym. So great intellectual property use and way to make something that was memorable and put it out in an acronym. And it works well for people to walk through that acronym, and it works well for organizations until it doesn't, because not everyone sees SMART goals as a positive force in goal setting. And the reason why is that many critics will argue that SMART goal technique doesn't work well for long-term goals. And that's what I want to talk about today is I really think areas of focus work better for long-term goals than SMART goals do. Now, my personality might be somewhat like yours in that sometimes I'm just a little bit rebellious about things that has always worked, and I always think there might be a better way. It's just how my brain works. There might be a better way, there might be a simpler way, and sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm not, but I love trying to figure out a more user-friendly way to bring a concept or an idea across. And I think that's part of where, when I was developing out my life management process, the real life process, I wanted to take something like SMART goals and say, how can this apply to my everyday, ordinary life? So let me walk you through what a SMART goal is, and then I'm going to compare it to areas of focus. And hopefully you'll walk away from this episode going, oh, I see how they are different and yet how they are similar. And I think areas of focus might really be a new term that I want to lead into. So here we go. SMART goals. The acronym is this. First, they're specific. The goal is measurable. You've heard that quote from Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets done. So specific, the M is measurable. Attainable has been used in different ways, but the one I like is attainable for the A, but yet ambitious. Specific, measurable, attainable. R stands for relevant. It can also stand for reasonable and realistic and resourced. So you can see since 1981, people have taken this acronym and put it into different things. But S.M.A.R, relevant, and T is time-bound. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant or realistic, and time-bound. So knowing those, let me walk you through a tool that we call an area of focus. Now, this is language that we use at the REALIFE Process. When you're setting up your life management system, we say pick 5 to 7 areas of your life that are your focus areas and give them a name and call them something. When we walk through this with a client, or I'm working in a workshop or on retreat, we mind map it out. We say, here's your life right here in the center. What are the 5 to 7 things that matter? Now, many times in the beginning of this process, someone will come up with way more than 5 to 7. I try to get them to bucket it down. If I had a bunch of buckets in front of you or a bunch of glass jars, and you had to put them in these 5 to 7 categories, what would you put them together? Things such as family, self-care, personal growth, finances, career, spiritual growth, health, wellness, extended family, friendships. Everybody calls them all kinds of different things, and that's the beauty of areas of focus. You name them whatever relates to you, because it's your real life that you're going to manage, that you're going to create this rule of life around, and becomes the framework for your rule of life, helps you what you're going to say yes and no to. But now let me put it into relationship to SMART goals. So first of all, the S is specific. So when someone chooses an area of focus, they just got really specific. This is my friendship area, or this is my family area. And we actually have people write out the most effective life management system. You write an I am statement around that area of focus. You give it a future vision that's very specific. So in the next year or two, I am growing in my relationship with each of my children by spending blank amount of time with them, doing these activities, whatever that is. Now, that is a future statement. It's not what's happening right now. It's what's going to happen in the next year or two. And that's where we move to the M, where the area of focus is now measurable. So first we got real specific on what it was, what category, what bucket it is. Then we wrote out a statement that says in the next year or two, this is how I'll be able to measure that I'm to that place. And then when we move to the A of attainable, what we do in the real life process is we help teach someone then how to take that vision, that specific area, how to write out that measurable statement, and then break it down into attainable projects. So we have the big goal, the SMART goal. Now we're going to make it attainable by breaking it down into projects. And this is where I think that SMART goals start to become ineffective because they're too big. They had a big vision, but it wasn't attainable. I see it in organizations. I see it in people's lives. I want to do this, and it's way out there somewhere, but it's unattainable. To make it attainable, we have to take that big thing that we know how to measure it in a year or two, or even in the next 90 days, and we have to break it down into actionable projects, workable things. And then the R that is called relevant is this 90-day project has tangible wins along the way. These projects become tangible wins that are reasonable and realistic and resourced and relevant. So every 90 days, you're working on a smaller part of the bigger whole of your area of focus. That creates such energy for you either personally or for an organization to say, here's the big thing. Here's how we're going to measure it and know that this is what we're working towards. It is attainable because we're breaking it down, and it's reasonable, realistic, relevant, and resourced. And one of the ways that it's resourced is we teach our people, and you can learn it too, to take a project and give it actionable steps, action steps. Here's my little piece of this bigger area of focus, and I'm going to give it an actionable step. For example, if you are working on something I have an area of focus called travel and recreation. It is one of my favorites. That's just how I bucket together the fact that I love to travel and that I want to have fun. I want to recreate. I want to do things. And so part of that is, say I had a goal to travel somewhere specific in the next year. And I actually do have that goal. I want to go on a European cruise. That is measurable. I know when I want to go. I'm going to go on sabbatical in November, and I want to go on a cruise. And so to break that down and say, and I planned the sabbatical a year ago. So I've been, on my calendar, planned out. And this is part of that bigger sabbatical goal. And so it's measurable. I know what it's going to happen. I have a specific thing. Now, I need to break that down into some projects. Actually, starting in Q2, I need to break it down into a little bit more of a project and give it some actionable steps. What are the specific dates? How much is it going to cost? Start a savings program for that. Get together with the friends that I want to go with and have us decide where we're going and when. So that'll be actionable work that I'm going to do. And that will feel good. That will be the R part, that it's reasonable. I'm planning far enough in advance. It's realistic. I'm going to resource it with funds. All of those things are happening in that R. And then the last T is it's time bound. That's in the SMART goal side. In the area of focus side, there's a lot of time bound. Number one, clear back at the beginning, we said this is something in the next year to 2 years, depending on you individually in your own life plan. Here's the big area, here's the bucket. And in the next year, it's going to look like this, or the next 2 years is usually what I write my I am statements around. This is what I want this area to look like in the next 2 years, career-wise, health-wise, all kinds of things. So I've got the time bound, and then I've got another layer of time bound in with 90-day projects, which is what I really think makes the difference between a SMART goal and an area of focus that's all the way broken down into projects, from the written vision statement of an I am statement to the measurability of the next year to 2 years, to the project itself, to the 90-day resourced action steps that are relevant and in a way that I can handle. I've broken it down into bite-sized pieces, and yet it's got time bound of back up to the long goal and down to a 90-day project. And then is specifically time bound as I've got it on my calendar to work on that project. And I've chosen and pre-decided time to work on it. So SMART goals compared to areas of focus. You decide which one would help you move your life forward, what system would work best for you. You can actually find this whole entire real life process life management system in my book, Do What Matters. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at all of your booksellers, online, all the places. Do What Matters, Live from Rest Not Rush. My book has this whole process in it. I had such resistance to the word goals because in my personality, it felt I set them, but I failed. I needed to break it down further, and it needed to matter in my life. I needed to set areas of focus that matter. I needed to claim them and state them and write them down. So pick up a copy of the book if you haven't done that. And then, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I want to invite you to join our free community. Just go to the website, click on that link, join the free community. No commitment, no cost. It's on a platform that we have created just for you. I am on there live every week on Thursdays. There's conversation. We have content and learning in there for you. So go check it out and become a part. Introduce yourself as soon as you get there. Tell me you came from the podcast so I can connect with you. And then don't forget, send me a question at Teresa@therealifeprocess.com, and I want to answer your question in the month of April. And then I'll send you some swag. It'll be great, I promise. And it will be something you can use in your everyday, ordinary life. So I can't wait to talk with you again. Come back and hang out with me here at the Doing What Matters podcast. And remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. I'll see you next week, friend.